to another episode of the James Loud Podcast. And today our special guest is Chris O'Farrell, the author of this book, 100 grams per square foot. Amazing. How are you doing today?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming out. We met originally at Emerald Cup earlier this year, and you are also self-published.
Correct.
So you and I can talk about all the crazy things that it means to be self-published and the process. I think there's a lot of stuff we can pass on to people that are interested in publishing, but also I wanted to get into your book and talk about 100 grams per square foot.
Let's do it.
That's pretty amazing. We both have books that came out around the right time because I feel like there's a need for someone to write a book on how to get better yields, right? And just like for breeding, I feel like we're way overdue for a breeding book that had a lot of detail on breeding, that was detailed. You know, I was excited to write a book, and then self-publishing, I was like, I'm going to do it. I thought it was going to be a lot easier. How do you feel about it?
Very, very similar experience. You know, what we thought was going to be a 1.5, 2 year project, you know, quickly unfolded into 3.5 years, and then, you know, trying to pull things together at the end. And, you know, we're still trying to work on marketing for ourselves. So it's still just, you know, it's a long process.
So 3.5 years from start to finish.
Correct. Yeah.
That's really good. Mine was 5 years. And I thought I could do it in 1 because I had like this big ego in the beginning. I'm like, dude, I could knock this out in 1. And originally I thought it was going to be 30,000 words, and we ended up with 115,000. And I had over 20 people that contributed to the books, whether it was photographs, videos, chapter on tissue culture, a chapter on intellectual property and law. So it unfolded and turned into this thing that was much bigger than myself, which I think a lot of times books do.
100%, man. Yeah, same over here. You know, what we thought would be a short process, you know, took a lot longer, especially when you start getting other folks involved. You start getting those critiques. It makes you think, and you honestly end up learning more throughout the process.
Yeah, I learned so much from start to finish about breeding, and a lot of things changed with cultivation and LEDs and stuff that had I not taken 5 years and put the book out 5 years ago, it would have been outdated by the time 2024 rolled around. You know, there was, you know, with LEDs and doing reversals and my experimentations, I did a lot of experimenting with LEDs and HPS, and, you know, I wasn't getting good reversals with LEDs, whereas HPS, I got this amazing reversal, like reversed plant that looked beautiful, right? And dumped out pollen. Whereas I get 20% reversals with LEDs. And so the difference is the far red, right? That's one of the differences. The heat, the far red, there's a couple different things, but HPS for the win, especially for reversals. Now, in this modern world, a lot of us are using LEDs. I use LEDs for pheno hunting because a lot of my customers that buy seeds use LEDs. So what's your take on LED versus HPS?
I think that you can grow a great flower under both lights, honestly. I think there's also something to be said about having, you know, more sophisticated LEDs. You know, take the company Pest, for example. They're really taking things to the next level with the spectrum tuning capabilities.
Right.
I mean, there's a couple companies doing it, but I work with them.
Yeah, and I work with science. So, you know, it's like, yeah, spectrum tuning is legit. Like it's great. The potential for spectrum tuning and the future of spectrum tuning, we're just scratching the surface with it. And it's like, there's so much potential for it.
Oh, I agree, man. I agree completely.
So, and I think some of the stuff is really going to be cultivar specific, which lighting is kind of anyway, because you can just look at HPS versus LED and you go Blue Dream, HPS all the way. You put it under LED and it gets a different expression. Same thing with like the OGs. Now, I haven't run that many OGs, but I've heard from a couple people that are growing the best OG that I smoked that CMH is actually the best spectrum.
Yeah, I've had similar experiences. I've got some strains, some cultivars rather, that, you know, they'll dump, 80, 90 grams a square, not finicky at all under HPS before I made the transition, and now putting them under, you know, more intense lighting, they just don't like it. They're super finicky.
Yeah.
They just don't take as well.
Skittles. I feel like the Skittles that my friend grows under LED is way better than my HPS Skittles that I was growing in 2018, like leagues above it. It's also, he just experimented with living soil. We smoked it a couple podcasts ago. We're going to smoke some today. Really good stuff. But I feel like it's like dialing in the cultivar for the environment. Yeah. Different nutrient regimens, lighting regimens, PPFD comes into play. I think you go into that in your book quite a bit. The importance of PPFD and basically crop steering.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, crop steering is everything that's happening in the room, right? From climate to your fertigation and substrate management. Uh, Literally everything that's surrounding the plant is crop steering. It's not just, when a lot of people get this confused, it's not just, what are you doing in the substrate? It's, how are you tailoring your VPD?
Right.
Your light levels. It all comes into play when you're steering something a certain way in that either high stress environment or that low stress environment to, promote ripening, flowering, fruit development, and then vegetative growth.
Well, and VPD is a tricky one too, because I think a lot of people, they have the Troll Master and they're like, well, it's in the range of the VPD. And then they're not accounting for surface temperature of the leaf, right? And I think that's the big thing, right? I mean, at least I think it is.
Yeah.
And, so there's so many things that are, there's a learning curve still where people are like, oh, I just use this chart and it's all encompassing. It works. And it's like, well, it'll work, but you're not optimizing the VPD in those situations.
For sure. Yeah, there's definitely no one size fits all. And having those IR sensors going into the canopy, which not a lot of folks use, will definitely help you dial that part of that process.
Totally. Yeah, it's like the technology has just come a long ways in the last 10 years. It's pretty amazing. And then guys like Josh and Ramsey that have kind of moved the needle forward, and especially with crop steering, and then books like this coming out to where the information is accessible. You don't have to just know the right person. Now you can buy a book. Because I think in the beginning, it's like, oh, well, who do you know that's going to share their secrets with you?
Yeah, literally. I mean, that was the whole thought behind the book, right? It's like we all, since, starting getting into what we all do now, it's always been this search for good information, because it's 90% of it's bad.
Right.
And bringing it all together in a digestible manner where you can look through. It's very textbook style, but wanted to give it coffee table vibes too. It's very easy to go through and figure out, which one of these cardinal parameters am I having issues with? And then you can just go through the steps of your troubleshooting.
Right. Yeah, I've had 2 friends steal the book already, and I had to go back and get it from them. But yeah, it's a great book. I feel like it's easy to digest, whereas like some textbooks are like super complicated and they go over your head and you have to keep on going. But you can actually pick it apart chapter by chapter, or you can go to specific stuff that you're interested about. I feel like I wrote a book similar in that sense, where it's like there's a lot of digestible information and there's something for everybody in there. And if you read it, you're going to learn something.
100%. I actually started reading your book recently too, man. I'm digging it so far. You can tell that there was a ton of work put into it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We really did, so I wrote the book about 5 times and threw away the first 4 versions of it. And then the last draft was kind of a start to finish, and I wrote it pretty quickly based on the other things. And then I brought an editor in named Angela Baca. She basically picked it apart and was like, no, we need to rearrange it this way. And I was like, well, I want to do it. And she's like, no, I think it would make more sense if we go from here to here to here. So it's very linear in that sense. And then people can understand it better. And she had a lot of good points. And so sometimes it takes an outside perspective looking in to go, okay, well, this is how you should do it.
100%. I did the same thing. I brought in a bunch of former colleagues, Stuart Wilcox, former COO of Curaleaf. I wanted that high level perspective.
Right.
Of, does it read well for folks that are, at that upper echelon of companies? Is it going to be, able to provide value to them? I brought in some folks, my buddies at Grodan, John Jarakovic, went through, read it, gave me good feedback.
Yeah.
Liam Spencer, who's actually working for Science LED for a while. I think he's actually a crop specialist for Arroyo now. Real good kid. I love him. Probably 5 other guys I'm forgetting right now. But yeah, that alternate or additional perspective is what really turned that book into something great.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, the more people that touch the book, the bigger it becomes in a lot of ways. And then it just outgrows you and you're part of something so much bigger than yourself. And it's like, and these books, they have value. They could last a lifetime. I feel like there's just so many things. But let's talk about yield for a second, because I love the title of your book, but also what is the largest yield you've gotten?
Largest yield I've gotten, probably around 130 grams a square.
Which is like 5 pounds a light?
Give or take, yeah.
Yeah. So pushing that 5 pound envelope with quality.
Yeah, I believe it's quality, man. We use great inputs. We've got a great team. We do all of our crop work on schedule. We don't cut corners anywhere throughout our processes. And I think that goes a long way with the final product at the end of the day.
Right. Totally.
And most recently, don't mean to interrupt, we hit 110 grams 2 weeks ago. That was really exciting. Anytime we do something good like that, we always take the team out. Got to make sure the team's taken care of, because those are the folks really making it happen. And
what kind of scale is this at? I'm sure a lot of people are curious about that.
So this is, right now I'm running 1,500 square foot rooms of canopy.
Wow.
I've run hundreds of thousands of square feet of canopy and working for Curaleaf in different states.
Right.
But currently I'm running 1,500 square foot rooms.
Nice. That's great.
Just small enough to still kind of be craft. It's not too big to control.
And then rock wool is your substrate of choice?
Love rock wool. We're running that in our perump grow right now, and seeing great results there. But I do like cocoa. I love cocoa. There's a bit more.
I do too. I think cocoa flavor, I mean, rock wool probably has the best look. I think cocoa probably is the most dynamic, and soil, I think, has the best flavor. And you can get great flavor out of rock wool, don't get me wrong. And rock wool is, rock wool is probably the as far as like being able to control, you can have a lot more control with rock wool.
100%. Yeah. Smaller substrate to manage. You can get quicker responses.
Yeah. And feedback. And if you're going, I feel like it's a little bit more accurate too when you're trying to like, because we do like a 10% dry back overnight and then 3% per hour. And then, at least that's what we do here. And everybody has their own way of doing it. But I feel like the rock wool, you can really dial that in. Cocoa, it's like it'll vary from pot to pot a little bit more.
For sure. Yeah. A lot more variability, which sometimes requires more sensors, but yeah.
To get better, more averages. And then once you have the average, you can dial it in a little bit more.
Exactly. You're only as good as your decisions are only as good as the data sets you have to make them from. So.
Right. Well, how many sensors do you feel like you should have in a room?
In a room, I don't really go by per room per se, but I go about, per square foot. I'd say about one sensor per 150 square feet of canopy.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Nice. And then what sensors do you think work the best?
It depends on the substrate, right? Like you have the grow sense, which obviously you'd probably,
So that's what I use is grow sense. I use grow sense for drybacks, right? But then we also have Agritech. So we have redundancy. So I use more than one.
Redundancy is key.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Arroyo though. I've been working with them for a couple of years now. Yeah. Great platform, easy to read and interpret the data to make adjustments. And then you also have that redundancy built in with their climate stations and such. So you can compare that to whatever your, existing building management system was before you implemented that into your operation.
Right. Yeah, and we actually have Arroyo sensors here too. We just don't have the Arroyo system anymore, but like I feel like I would like to go back because we are all about A/B testing. So I would love to compare the data between Arroyo and GrowSense because I feel like they're both good. And so, it's like how much off is each one? What's the difference? Am I getting better results with one than the other? And we do that with everything from the irrigation skid that I showed you earlier. That's what keeps me excited every day. I come in and I'm like, okay, well, it's almost like I can play with this stuff, but it's also data driven. And so I'm trying to do it in a productive, scientific way to where we get actual data that's valuable instead of just playing around.
Right.
So, because a lot of people, they like to play around.
Yeah. 1,000 ways to skin a cat,
For sure. With cultivation, it's like harvest date, depending on the cultivar. What do you like? Do you want more candy? Do you want more gas? Do you want it stronger? Do you want it more mild? Are you using it for extract?
Yeah. I mean, all of those things come into play and we're planning our rims out. So it's for us, at least, it's always a collaborative effort, right? Like what's doing well at the retail level that, goes back to the lab, our production team, our extraction team. What do we need to formulate different products, whether it's a live resin gummy that we need a specific flavor profile for. So we'll make sure we have an allocation in the room for things. So we'll send just a fresh frozen.
Yeah.
What cartridges are doing well in terms of live resin pens. Same thing there, allocations for that. And then, what finished flower do we really want? Which one of our stores?
Right. Well, yeah. And you're in the cultivation space. So you're doing the Lord's work. It's a challenge these days. I just do the nursery. We don't sell flower or anything like that, but we do phenohunt. We do testing and the nursery model, which I love, licensing, genetics, clones, all that stuff. We're about to go direct to consumer with the clones.
I can be a consumer. I'd love to get some of your cuts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we're looking for people to partner with in other places. So I think that could be an interesting conversation.
Should have an R&D room coming online in a couple of months up in Pahrump. So
nice.
Yeah, should do some fun things out there.
Yeah, and I love testing things in different environments and seeing what kind of results people get and comparing COAs, but also comparing opinions on flower. Because I think different regions and different places have different desires as far as what kind of end product works. Like California, the Bay Area, LA, purple candy gas is like really what they want. And it can go more gas. It can go more candy. It can go more or less purple, but it's really kind of in that, like, you might be able to sell some Sour Diesel or some Blue Dream these days. It's surprising. Blue Dream's made a huge comeback. And maybe it never left completely, but like now it's popular everywhere again. People really love it. And I think it's interesting because of the effect.
Yeah, it definitely lost some steam. And I remember buddies, running all their garages and houses and up in the Pooter Canyon, just Blue Dream. Never had any problem getting rid of anything for years. Then probably 2016, 2017 came around, and then that's when you guys, the breeders, started really getting creative with stuff. And
yeah, and I mean, we had it in the early to mid 2000s, and that's when it had its day. And then as soon as the clones got out, the price dropped on it. It was like one of the worst years of my life because I was like so focused on growing Blue Dream, and then Christmas came around and I had all these packs. It was a long story, but once the market got flooded with it, it was so easy to grow. And that was the first thing that was kind of like, oh, it was easy to get over 2 pounds of light for almost anybody, and then now people are like, oh, 2 pounds of light isn't good enough. We need to hit 3 to be successful. Not everybody, but like at a commercial scale, I think a lot of people are looking for that 3 pound of light number.
Yeah, that all boils down to your margins and costing, right? Like taking that lean approach, eliminating steps, and I mean, having a plant that can yield heavier is just going to bring your costs down across the board.
Yeah. I mean, I have some friends that run double stack they have a rec grow down the street, and they have a double stack, and their cost per pound to produce it, because they get over 3 pounds of light, is like $280 per pound indoor. And that, 600 was the average for the longest time. I think the average is now probably 5, maybe 475 or something like that. But in rec, we have high electricity here too. It's super expensive. We're not like Washington State is 7 cents a kilowatt. We're like 39 cents a kilowatt.
Yeah, we're at 12 cents a kilowatt up in Vegas areas.
Yeah, nice.
We're also hitting, I think, right around $1 per gram after dry trim cure, testing everything.
Yeah.
Not in a package, but.
No, but that's a good number to hit. I feel like anybody who's getting below that is doing some miracles, to be able to get those numbers. And, the double stack plays a huge role. And then cultivar selection is huge.
Everything boils down to genetics. Genetics is now and will forever be the backbone of every operation. You're only as good as your weakest guy, right? So if you have strong genetics, you're going to have strong crops. Yep.
Pest and pathogen free, good genetics. It's like, and it's such a big thing now. I think for the longest time, we really didn't talk. We were worried about spider mites, and then it was root aphids and maybe some broad mites and russet mites. But now it's like we got to worry about pathogens, like significant. They do significant damage.
Oh yeah.
And if you get your blinders on still, you're gonna get burned. You're gonna get hit.
Oh yeah.
If you're trading cuts with everybody, like it's no big deal. That's like having sex in the 80s without protection.
That's right, man. It's all about getting that good quarantine, having them come from a reliable source, going through all the pathogen testing. And yeah, viroids are a problem. Like, if you're not managing your substrate correctly, you can get real bad Fusarium oxysporum problems by just giving them that perfect oversaturated environment.
Yeah, and I think Fusarium is a thing we don't talk about enough because we're so focused on hoplite and viroid, but Fusarium is a big problem, and it's out there everywhere. That's another one that I'm seeing everywhere with stuff. And a lot of people will say, no, that's hoplite. And it's like, no, it's not. It looks like Fusarium.
Yeah. Cut a stem open.
Totally. Exactly. So how did you get your start in cultivation and everything that you're doing now?
Yeah. So I was in the Marine Corps infantry for 5 years. And prior to that, I was a river guide on the Shenandoah and Potomac rivers. And I've just always been real fascinated by plant medicine, mushrooms, fungi, adaptogenic herbs, cannabis, obviously.
Yeah.
Grew a little bit of weed, sold a little bit of weed back then. Nothing of scale or anything of note. But that was the initial thing that kind of perked my interest. And then after getting out of the Marine Corps, moved out to Colorado, had some buddies that were running caregiver operations, did a lot of work with them, was real fortunate to learn a lot from those guys. And that was my start. I probably spent about 3 years growing in Colorado, up in the Pooter Canyon, Fort Collins, Native Roots, and Denver, Colorado.
Nice.
Then East Coast market started opening up, took a move east, did some consulting, rewrote some curriculums for the Cleveland School of Cannabis for their commercial cultivation operations course and their cannabis cultivation course. Then I got picked up by Curaleaf, helped them design some facilities, start some facilities, kind of in a regional capacity there for about a year and a half while the first facility in Ohio was getting built. And was with them for about 3 years, and then wanted to move back home to Colorado, and then ended up being reached out to for the company I'm working for now, Deep Roots Harvest, and went out there, met with the team. The executive team was super cool. The grow was great. Team was awesome, and ended up, going out there working with them, and have been with them now for 3 years.
Wow.
Done a lot of good things.
So when you were in Fort Collins, did you get to try that Fort Collins cough?
The Fort Collins cough. Where is that coming from?
Fort Collins, Colorado.
Specific store breeder?
No, it was, so that's a NL5 Haze cross that's extremely special. I did some breeding with it a couple years ago and I love it. And it's just, the thing is like the outdoor growers, they struggle with it because it gets so tall, it'll go right over your fence line and it just keeps getting taller and taller and taller. Even in the end, it's still, it's still growing throughout flower. And, but yeah, it's hazy, it's funky, it's got a real strong funk to it.
Sounds like I missed out on something.
Yeah. That's a special one. And I feel like I haven't seen it grown indoors. I've heard about people that grow it indoors. I've seen pictures on Instagram of it grown indoors, but most of the time I've seen it is outside and I grew it outside myself.
Nice. I was running probably 3 things predominantly out there, outside of the, bigger ops that I was running. But Space Queen from TG or Subcool.
Yeah.
Love Space Queen. 303 seeds. I think it was Sasquatch. It was like Hindu Kush, Grape Ape, and Uzbekistan hash plant cross.
Guy, I haven't heard of Sasquatch in
beautiful
10 years.
Beautiful pink flowers, man. Like the bag appeal, unmatched. You just don't see things like that today.
Yeah. Nice.
And then Golden Goat, one of my all-time favorites.
You can't go wrong with some good Golden Goat. Funny story about Golden Goat. So in my freezer, I still have Golden Goat BHO from 2018 that I've been saving, and I still smoke it every once in a while. I'll bust it out, warm it up, and dab it. It's, extract just stays good forever, especially good sauce.
Oh yeah.
So Sauce and Diamonds. It's actually from House of Cultivar, my good friends. Yeah, and I've just saved it ever since. I was given it an Emerald Cup in 2018, and I still have it. That's a good one.
Dude, I love Golden Goat.
Yeah, it's special.
It's
special, and the terps on it are loud. It's like got that nose burning lemon to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Fills a whole house.
Yeah, totally. I've never grown it or anything like that, but I really like the cultivar. I like the expression. I like the effect too.
Oh yeah. Great plant structure, great yielder, and great flower.
Yeah. Yeah. Colorado's got some good stuff. I don't think they get enough credit all the time.
I don't either, man.
Now they got Adam Dunn in his podcast ruining it all for everybody. So yeah, he's a good friend of mine. But yeah, he's got some good genetics. We did some sage and sour crosses together, and that's another one. That's my favorite, or one of my favorites. Sour is my favorite. Cat piss is my favorite. Don't really get to see them too often anymore. Cat piss definitely not. The sour, I've just reconnected with sour at Reggae on the River this year. So that's one of our local favorite varieties.
Nice. Do you have any here?
No, but we do have some Skittles. You like Skittles?
I do like Skittles.
Nice. Yeah, we got some Skittles and then we got some Crippy. We're calling this stuff Uncle Rick's Crippy. And it's like this old school OG variety that's super gassy, super special in my opinion. Different than everything else that's going on right now. Super frosty, but it's sticky, loud, like extremely like pungent where it burns your nose, but it's OG. And you just don't see gassy stuff like that anymore.
Not really. We've got we probably have 2. I mean, we get a little bit of gas from our Gorilla Glue, but not like the old
we were
GG4.
talking about that yesterday. It's funny how we have these reoccurring things like Gorilla Glue keeps popping back up. And, I like Gorilla Glue for what it is. It kind of like came in, and I'm one of the guys who got the cut from Josie Wales in 2013. And I believe it was 2013 at the Cup in LA. It was either that or 2014, right at the end there of 13 or early part of 14 at the Cup in San Bernardino. And they did the best thing ever was they gave the cut out to everybody. And that blew it up. They'd won the Cup and they gave out clones to everybody. And then it just spread like wildfire. I gave it to a bunch of my friends. We made moms of it and mommed it out and gave cuts to everybody. And then it replaced sour diesel within about a year of all the people that were growing sour diesel. For not all of them, but a lot of them, especially up on the hills in Sonoma, Mendo, Humboldt, that were growing sour. It was like, you get something that's gassy, gets better yields and finishes earlier. So you don't have to worry about rain. You don't have to worry about botrytis and PM and all these other issues.
Big flowers on that plant.
Big, chunky. And it's like, it's got some chocolate notes in it too. It was like really funky gas with chocolate notes. It was complex.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And strong. And like the effect was strong.
Yeah, you can't really find those cuts anymore. Not at least not the stable ones. I've tried a few times now, and most of the ones I picked up just herm.
For Gorilla?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I can get you a Gorilla cut. We can get the GG4, no problem. Like that's another one it's in culture, so it takes a few months, but yeah, that one's around. We got a good amount of stuff. Chem 91 is coming out of culture right now. I'm about to give that back to Greg. Yeah, good. I like Chem 91. The 91 Chem Dog is extremely special in my opinion. It's like it's got its own kind of gas. You know, it's that burnt tire, chemi kind of. You know, the structure's not the best on it. It's got decent structure, but it's soft. The buds are soft and they're nice big buds. It's like open bracts, but it's not like sour diesel where it completely fingers out, where you got these stacked bracts or foxtails that, you know. And sour diesel doesn't always foxtail like that, but a lot of times it does.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the not a lot of them, but a fair amount of some of the older genetics foxtail a good bit.
Yeah, and I think that can be a quality thing too. I'm okay with foxtail as long as it's fire.
Yeah.
But I come from a time where it didn't matter as much what it looked like. It was all about the loudness and the effect. So, which I think people are going to start going back towards. I feel like with Whitethorn Rose hitting the market as strong as it did this year, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one, but Whitethorn hit hard, and that's from Huckleberry Hill Farms. And it's one of those feel-good strains. It's not the strongest in the world, but it just makes you feel great. It's all about the effect. The terps are good too, but man, that effect is what's up.
Yeah, I'm anticipating something similar with a market shift like that. Most bang for your buck mentality. You know, how much can I get in a bag with the highest THC with the lowest cost? I think that's gonna, you know, I'm sure it'll always be there for certain consumers, but I think there's going to be a different, you know, demographic that's going to come out similar to folks that like wine and, you know, good drinks, like good mixed drinks, where people are just looking for specific flavor profiles, things to pair things with.
Flavor chasers. We got lots of flavor chasers out there. And now with the potential, I mean, we were kind of talking about making salads the other day about mixing up different flour. Definitely rosin can be easily blended where you can take 25% this. We're going to do Skittles 75 and we're going to throw in something else to make it special. You know, or whatever, 50-50, you know, I think you can really, you know, the options are limitless on the directions you can go with blending, especially with stuff like rosin or extract. Tell me what you think of that. Should let you dry hit it. That's the dirt Skittles. Soil grown. So we did an interesting test where we took Skittles grown in soil and Skittles grown in cocoa. That was the only difference throughout the whole cycle. Same light, same nutrition, united nutrients. And the only difference was the substrate. Soil versus cocoa. And then we smoked them side by side. We did it on the show with Hallie from Humboldt Seed Company. And it's like so significant flavor-wise.
I agree. This is the best weed I've ever smoked was definitely Living Soil Blueberry Diesel, like probably 2016 or something.
Yeah. I like that Blueberry Diesel. That's a good one too.
So good.
So that's the best thing you've ever smoked. Nice. Yeah, it's funny because like from batch to batch, I've smoked amazing things all over. Skittles, the best batch of Skittles that I ever smoked was this one right here. Yeah, and it really, dude, this stuff coats. The ash, yeah, I rolled this one too. This is a fatty.
I rolled
4 grams. I feel like you get better flavor. If you're a flavor chaser, not the bigger the better always, but there's that sweet spot. It's depending on the tip too. If you're using like a 12 or a 10, it hits different. You get better airflow and you get more terps. So, and everyone's got their own thing going on. You know, some of the, and this ash isn't looking as pretty today as it did yesterday, but we'll smoke some of the other ones too. I mean, dirt Skittles, something special about it.
Love Skittles.
Oh yeah, this one coats. It's got a good coat. But yeah, I think I roll. So the thing that I'm learning with hand rolls, we call them hand rolls instead of pre-rolls, but with the hand rolls, you want to smoke them fresh too. After you roll them, they start to, even if you put them in a joint tube, they're not quite as good a week later as they would be for the first couple of days. And they're good. This is still amazing, but it's just a little bit more mouth coating. I feel like you're getting more terps.
Yeah, they're volatile, you know, evaporate off at room temperature.
Yeah. So. And each cultivar is different. Some cultivars are good for months. They're exactly, once they hit their peak, they're good. And you could put them in a terp block bag or whatever. We just have those guys on. But
Love those bags.
Me too. I absolutely love them. They're a game changer in my opinion. They changed my life. And also, I'm like one of those guys who doesn't believe things are good a lot of times. There's so much snake oil out there. I'm like, yeah, right. Another Mylar bag that's better. Cool. It's thick. But no, if you actually do your homework and you do any trials with them, you'll see that they're better, especially better than turkey bags, better than mason jars. I mean, mason jars, your buds don't get smashed. That's the only benefit. And I think using a controlled environment where it's cool, then you don't have to, you pull the guesswork out if you're using a terp block, especially like in that curing phase where you don't have to burp it. Because a lot of people, they screw it up within that, post-harvest for the week after, 2 weeks after, 3 weeks after, they're not releasing that CO2 out of the bag. Mm-hmm. And if you don't release it, then moisture gets trapped in the plant. And that's what terp blocks do.
Exactly. And, from operational perspective, it just makes sense for, efficiency, right? Because then you're not having, a couple of guys that are strictly just running around depending on the scale.
Right.
Popping toads, popping buckets, popping turkey bags.
Well, and that when we were talking about this yesterday, but then when you got people manually doing it, it becomes an art where you have to be skilled. You put it in a terp block, it's mechanically done instead of manually done, and then it does it itself. Like you don't have to worry about that. That's one less thing you have to worry about, and the less things you have to worry about that are going to be successful, the better your end product is probably going to be.
Oh yeah, 100%. And then you could focus, your efforts you would have spent on that somewhere else.
Totally. Yeah, I'm all about efficiencies. It's all about efficiencies at the end, especially when you're getting into scale and cost efficiencies where you're trying to save money. Because at the end of the day, especially with guys that are producing flower, it's like such a competition and race to the bottom if you're in the middle. If you're creating a superior product, not so much the race to the bottom, but you still have to be conscious of your price.
Absolutely. I mean, price compression's hitting everybody, at a national level, with the exception of a few states that are just, opening up the medical markets, but just a matter of time. Being cognizant of that from the very beginning, having the right, mechanical equipment in place, the right workflow, having the right people there to get things done the right way goes a long way. It
goes a long way. Having a good staff is everything, and good work culture, that's everything too. People want to your people want to come to work. They enjoy working. It's like they wouldn't want to be anywhere else. That's when you got a winning recipe.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you're not involved in the kickball teams, the softball leagues, and the mud volleyball and all of that stuff with the team, you should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's those little things like, that make a huge difference because it's stressful a lot of times. Even, the little jobs can be stressful at times. We don't do any hand water. I'm done with hand watering. We will hand water in the tent, but that's another one. I've had friends that were hand watering forever and finally have switched over in the last couple of years. And it's like, man, you just have so much time for other things. And it's one less thing you don't have to worry about. And you don't have to train somebody on and hope they're doing it correctly.
Exactly. You get that consistency.
Yeah. And it's repeatable. Like it's one of those things that's repeatable time and time again. And if you're doing 5 harvests a year out of that room, the watering is going to be successful because you got sensors. It makes life easier.
Exactly.
And I want those things to be easy because there's so many other things that'll stress you out.
Yeah, no kidding.
So yeah, like the market.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's kind of volatile right now. But what state are you in again?
Nevada.
Nice. So yeah, and Nevada is volatile too. And you guys have, rec has been introduced for the past couple of years, but you guys have like one of the largest dispensaries in the whole world, Planet 13 out in Vegas.
Yeah, they're a partner of ours.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
They're crushing it.
Oh yeah, Planet 13 does real well. They also have a great breakfast spot right across inside that same building.
Nice.
Highly recommend checking that place out.
Yeah, so tell me one of the biggest things you learned from writing this book.
Probably adjusting my own expectations of things. Like, kind of going back to how we started our talk, just being patient with the process, more or less.
Yeah.
Because, and don't let good get in the way of, or don't let perfect get in the way of good, right? Yeah. Like me and my co-author, Luca Boldrini, went back and forth a few times. We're like, oh, it's ready. And then I'd sit down, read a chapter and be like, we could do better.
Yeah.
Or I'd read an article and be like, I feel like I should, mix something from this into a certain section just because I think it's super important. So it was just like every time we thought we were about done, there was just more and more and more.
I know that feeling. Yeah. And it's funny because if you've never written a book, you probably wouldn't relate to it as much. But like mine, I feel like there was information coming out at the last minute where Abstracts Tech, for instance, wrote a white paper, actually multiple white papers on flavorants, which are, they did a bunch of research. So flavor molecules like thiols and sulfur-based compounds.
Volatile sulfuric compounds.
Oh yeah. And so I had to include that in my book. So we had to like add this to the book right before we were going to layout. We're like, no, we need to add this. This has to be. I talked to Angela and I'm like, what do you think about this? She's like, yeah, we should probably figure out how to include it. It's like pretty game changing. And, you know, I actually read all the papers. I showed them to a couple other people and we were like, yeah, this needs to be in the book. Like if we don't put it in the book, it's going to need to go in the next version, but it's out right now and we haven't finalized everything, even though we felt like we'd finalized everything. And there was a whole bunch of little things like that. And then photo placement, where are we going to place all the photos? That was kind of tricky.
Yeah, that's a lengthy process, man. And then picking those photos too, you know, like you'll probably have 5 for each section. You want one and then going through and, well, I like this one, but she likes that one. And, you know, Paul likes this one. And then, you know, trying to come together and figure out, you know, what's going to be the best for each section.
Yeah. I mean, we had 2 photographers that did a lot of the heavy lifting. And then on top of that, we had Aryan from Greenhouse. We had Ace Seeds contributing photos. We had so many people contributing photos. Kevin Jodry got me some. There's a bunch of people in the industry that kind of were very helpful that were like, yeah, I'll help contribute to your book. And, you know, Mojave Richmond's another guy, contributed some really cool stuff. We did case studies in my book too. So.
Nice. Yeah, we tried to keep ours as tight-knit as possible. You know, a lot of the previous books we had read, not going to name any, had, you know, tons of advertisements, you know, use this, use that, use these lights, use these nutrients.
I won't do it. Yeah, for that, I feel like that it moves away from being a textbook to being a magazine.
Exactly. Yeah. We wanted to like preserve the authenticity and just have like, you know, raw, you know, usable information that's going to be applicable to, you know, the reason why folks should buy that book, not like a, hey, you know, shout out to this company.
Yeah, where you're pushing people in any one direction for products. I just want to put the facts out there and let people make their mind up. And yeah, we do talk about some products, but I try to make it as non-biased as possible and just telling people the facts. And, you know, that's the best way with the textbook. It's supposed to be information for people to digest. It's not supposed to be a magazine.
Exactly.
I love that about your book too.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we mentioned a few products as well, you know, like Floraflex and Jax, just for simplicity, right? Like from a costing perspective.
Yeah.
Can't beat, you know, 1.5 cents per gallon start to finish on average.
Jax is the blue stuff, right?
It's white blue.
It's blue powder.
Right.
Yeah. Jax. My buddy used Jax for a long time. Swore by Jax. I haven't used Jax, but I've seen some stuff growing with it. It's all right.
Yeah.
For simplicity, yeah, I would agree. You can't beat a one part.
Yeah, exactly. And the costing too, you know, like a lot of the nutrient lines nowadays, 7 to 14 cents a gallon, depending on, you know, how much you're ordering. But
yeah, you just, you know, it's like, that's why dry rather than by the gallon. It's like using dry is like so much more economical. And also like the carbon footprint, we got sold the idea that we needed liquid fertilizers. I mean, it's so crazy because you look at any other form of ag, they're not loaded up on these liquid 5-gallon concentrate bottles that you could get powder of.
Oh yeah, you know, when you're buying 1,000 pounds of salts versus you know, the equivalent into liquid, you're talking about, you know, tens of thousands of dollars and like freight charges associated with that too.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy once you start penciling it out, like the difference in price, just by the weight of the water.
Exactly.
So yeah, and I mean they have stabilizers in them, and the thing is maybe we didn't have as good a quality stuff before. They didn't done all the R&D for buffers and stabilizers and things like that. And now we have that technology, so it's very easy. People understand it a lot better. I mean, there's only a handful of companies that actually make the dry powder for everybody anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then there's the cannabis tax, because a lot of times you can go to the ag world and get stuff for ag that's pennies on the dollar from the cannabis stuff. Right. And I'm not hating on any nutrient companies. I love you guys all. I love all of the nutrient companies.
I agree. I've used all of them from Advanced to House and Garden to Canna.
Yeah. Front Row.
Oh yeah.
I like Front Row. I like Canna. I got the Canna hat on today. I do. I like Cutting Edge. I like United is what we're using now. Athena's fine. Dude, I've used so many GH. I've used GH. I've tried a bunch.
I still use GH pH up.
Nice. Yeah, for the longest time, I was doing this Botanicare with Flora Nova was the secret recipe. It was like this super complex recipe that you could never use with dosers. It would because there was 18 different things, and it's like, yeah, and it was complicated and it grew really good flower. But man, it's like those old recipes. Is the weed better, or was the weed better back then with 18 things? I don't think so.
No, I don't either.
No, I think you're overcomplicating stuff. Now I get at, certain flush recipes. Yeah, you're going to have some different stuff. And we have a special flush recipe that we have that was developed by one of our friends that works phenomenal. And it's got a bunch of components in it. I was like, looks like a lot. We have to hand flush everything, but you get white ash and you get really good flavor. So at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, it's all about the flavor.
Yeah. So what do you think about flush?
Flush, I talked to Bruce Bugsby about this actually before speaking on facility design at the Cannabis Business Times conference like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
And, from a plant physiology perspective, it doesn't make any sense to deprive the plant of nutrients up until harvest. And when people do flush, depending on what you are flushing, right? If some people who do just RO or just tap water or pH'd water, if you deprive your plant of calcium, that'll result in botrytis. If you do it for too long, are you actually flushing the flower anyway? Like when you look at the plant, what's deficient? The flowers aren't deficient. The foliage is deficient, right? So you'll see that fade in the foliage, but it's not really affecting the flower.
Yeah.
So there's 10 ways to look at it and break it down. Is it something you're doing for a costing perspective? In terms of a year, 56 chops, cut out, 4 days. That could be some savings depending on the scale of the operation. But
yeah,
as far as quality of the finished product goes, I think there's something to be said about how the chlorophyll can break down and how that flower can cure by removing some of that.
Well, and then calcium. I think a lot of people are using calcium to get whiter ash. And I think I hear different opinions on calcium and the benefits of actually calcium. Is it uptaking a bunch of that calcium? Is it not? But I'm seeing better ash with calcium. So yeah, and then I think molasses is another big one. Putting sugar in there.
Oh yeah, carbo load.
Some carbo load, some sweet.
Oh yeah, some of those simple and complex sugars.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's great. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can improve the flavor, why not do it?
Yeah, I agree.
So, and also make it more smooth. If there's ways to make it more smooth, increase the flavor, I'm all for it.
Same. It's all about that end user experience, right?
Right. Well, because at the end of the day, you're providing experience for the customer. It's just like a chef would for someone dining at their restaurant, and flour is no different. It's a fresh product and it comes out slightly different. Even at scale, even the best environments, there's still slight variation because there's so many things that go on. It's not exactly the same product that comes out every harvest. You get a lot more similar the more dialed in your system is, especially like using like rock wool. You start talking chemotypes, you can get tighter chemotype expressions. But it still is a living product that can change from time to time. And also you get some systemic bacteria in there, you can get a totally different expression. Or you get some stressors, some thrips, some mites, whatever it is, it's like
induce those jasmonic pathways, get some different responses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, stressors will make the plant more terpy. That's just a known fact.
Oh yeah.
So I have friends that have thrips and their stuff is super terpy and they're like, what's cool? And I'm like, well, don't ever come to my facility. But yeah, I mean, they might have a point to a degree. So, and I think there is a couple compounds or brands that are making things to foliar that actually act as stressors.
Yeah, harpin proteins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, we're still learning about the plant. I'm excited about innovation.
Always learning, man. The second you stop learning, that's where, your improvements of any kind of quality stop, right?
So as far as data collection, how much data collection do you guys do?
Oh, we do a lot. I couldn't, off the top of my head, probably give you a data point number, but I mean, many different data points from the substrate, the environmentals, the climate, PPFD readings. We get a lot of data points just from like an efficiency perspective with our shift reports from all of our supervisors, what's getting done, how long did it take?
Right.
We're also in the middle of building a very robust addition to our cultivation management software now where we're adding costing in. So we're going to actually be able to, apply true cost to everything. Like how long did it take? Down to the milliliter of everything used to the hour of labor.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you get efficiencies. You improve.
Oh yeah.
More data points. Do you guys measure your plants going into for growth on a weekly or daily basis ever?
I used to for different things when I start new things out, like measuring internodal spacing and stem diameter, all that stuff. But I've kind of moved away from that.
Where it's not as beneficial information after a period of time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then dialing in your PPFD, what is the best way to dial your PPFD in?
Really looking for plant responses, as you're photo acclimating things. If you, see an adverse plant response where it's like, oh, obviously the plant's got too much light because, it has that slight, it's not turgid, right? The turgidity of the plant with the water pushing on the cell walls just isn't happening. They're not praying, as everybody calls the leaves. Right. You want to see that turgidity. Like if your VPD is dialed in a room, you'll see your turgidity. Like if your light's good, your VPD is good. Yeah. You've got good pressure in the root zone. That's what you're going to see. Yeah. You want happy, healthy plants. Right. Whether you're cutting clones, whether you're flowering, whatever. Yeah. You want praying plants. Yeah. That just being cognizant of those light levels, right? Like certain ones can take more than others, and just knowing that going into the game, not trying to use that cookie cutter to every single one of your rooms, every single part of your room. Going in and knowing that, old school lemons, if we get over 600 micromoles in here, it's not going to like it. Yeah. And then your gush mints you can hit with, 1,400 micromoles. It's wild. It's going to throw down 5 a light. Yeah. Yeah. You're going for that same thing with the super boof. Yields like crazy. Exactly. So, yeah. And do you see the future of people pushing even higher numbers per square foot? It depends on how you look at it. I actually had some conversations with some of my my Grodan buddies recently, and they were talking about this setup in Amsterdam where they essentially had like these, it was like an ebb and flood style clone tray where it's like right from clone flipping into flower. Right. And they were boiling down the costing per square foot with the yield. Mm-hmm. If you look at it as like a stacked square foot, I'm sure there's creative ways to go about doing it. Yeah. And if you veg your plants, anything longer than 3.5 weeks, I'm sure you can get more, but then, you're gonna have to account for that in other ways in your room. Like you have to increase your dehumidification capacity, your cooling, all of that. Yeah. So there'll just be other things that have to grow with that. Yeah. What are your thoughts on under canopy? Under canopy, I think it's great for a lot of applications. Like there's a lot of different parts of the plant that can accept light that can benefit the plant, and right. A lot of the lights that are out there now don't get as much penetration through the canopy, right? Like certain ones do, like the phosphate 3Is I'm using now, I can get, upwards of 300 to 400 micromoles after a good defol. Yeah. Down there on those lowers, I'll get softballs top to bottom. Wow. But, if you don't have something like that, under canopy would definitely be something advantageous to implement. And you typically thin multiple times throughout flower and through veg? Or what's your process for thinning typically? So for defoling, I'll do like a light defol and like late veg. And then day 21, between days 21 and 28, we go through, do a light skirt, pull the lower third off, and then hit about a 65% defol top to bottom. Nice. Yeah. And then we get a final defol probably, end of week 7. Week 7. Nice. Yeah. Really strip them. Oh yeah. Like if it's not sugar leaf, it goes at that point. Yeah. What makes harvesting easier, all that stuff. And it's not necessary to have those leaves on for yield at that point. Exactly. Yeah. And then for, any biomass that makes it to extraction, we're not going to have, 14% testing trim. The trim's going to test just as high as the flower. And that translates into, improved costing for everything downstream in our production lab as well. Totally. Yeah. That's a good way to look at it for sure. Let's talk about drying and curing. Because I think, what is your preferred method for drying and curing? Low and slow, man. 60-60, tried and true. Like I know a lot of ops might not have the real estate to hold things this long, right? But if you do, low and slow is the way to go. Yeah, and some people don't have. I've seen this a lot where their ACs don't go down to 60; they can only go down to 65 or 62. 62 is fine. 65 is pushing it. Yeah, you don't want to let perfect get in the way of the good sometimes. No, things like that. If you have an extra day, yeah, not gonna defeat you. Yeah, and then curing terplocks. You guys use terplock bins? Do you guys use 100 We have the liners in our 37-gallon totes. We'll throw the bovitas in there, just for redundancy. And then once we actually lot things out, they go into the 5-pound lot grow bags, terplock. So yeah, with the bovita. Yeah, that's great. I've never heard of that before. That's new to me. That's an interesting concept.
I like redundancies though. I'm all about redundancies. So that's, it's like my life is built on redundancies.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Got to think about that when you're planning the operation out too. If something goes down, how are we going to make sure all these rooms get watered? Got to have a female pipe thread that you can, throw a Mondi pump on with a couple 55-gallon drums. If, your whole fertigation system goes down, you're not going to be able to get support till the next day.
Yeah. And cry because everything died. Yeah. Which I've seen that happen before. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've seen nuked rooms.
Oh yeah. So yeah, or the power goes out and then it comes back on and the fans don't kick back on, or what. I've seen all kinds of stuff in my life.
Or one of your units trips and gets stuck in heating mode, come back in the next day and looks like everything caught fire.
Yeah. You got some golden goat, but it's not the right, not the right kind of golden goat.
Exactly.
Yeah, completely golden plants. It looks like a field of wheat.
Literally crispy.
Crispy. That's the worst.
Not even biomass worthy.
That makes my stomach churn a little bit just because I've seen it before, and it just, I feel for the people that it happens to.
Mm-hmm.
We're not even touching this thing.
Have to put some work in.
Yeah. Tell me about the first time you started smoking cannabis.
I was living in South Carolina at the time. It was one of my friend's older brothers. He had some weed. We tried it. Didn't get high the first time. Tried it again like a week later, and I loved the way it made me feel. I had a bit of anxiousness to me, kind of always have. And every time that I smoke cannabis, whether it's an edible or tincture, like it seems to mitigate that completely for me. So it was love at second smoke for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like a lot of us do the same thing. It's like the first time you smoke, you don't know how to smoke or you don't know how to inhale properly. And you get caught up in everything and then you don't get high. And edibles can fix that real quick.
Oh, I've been humbled by some boulder bars.
Oh man, I've been humbled by edibles too. I like rosin gummies. I don't do too much of the edibles these days. It's just, for me, they're so strong, but I can smoke all day long. No problem. But then when it comes to edibles, it seems like they take forever to kick in. Then once they kick in, I want them to be like more mellow sometimes, or I take too much. 50 milligrams is too much for me, which a lot of people, that's fine. I'm more of like the 20. It depends too. It really depends on what it is and who made it and
time of day,
what I'm doing. If I'm at a concert, I'm not thinking about it. Yeah, it's totally fine. Or if I'm flying and I'm going to sleep.
Exactly. Yeah. I think my sweet spot's probably right around 40 to 50 as well.
But I got some friends that are like 500 milligrams, give it to me. I'm ready. And I'm not that guy. Yeah. So, but roll me up a fat joint and we'll smoke it. We'll smoke two, hanging out. And that's what I enjoy. I enjoy sitting. I also enjoy the experience of hanging out with my friends and smoking. It's part of the whole experience where you can talk to somebody, you can hang out and smoke, and you can get to know new people. I feel like over a period of a big joint in an hour, you can learn a lot about somebody. And there's funny things like you can tell about people if they gum the joint and get it all wet. You know what I mean? Or if they make the joint run because they hit it too hard. It's like all these little things. It's like character flaws. I can spot the character flaws by the way they smoke the joint.
True.
So, I don't hate on anybody, but so it's gross to have a joint that's all wet.
Oh, I agree.
Are you going to be working on another book or another version of this book in the near future?
I would definitely like to. I think my biggest, the biggest improvement that I think that we could make, for me at least, is the illustrations. I spent probably weeks reaching out to different botanical artists on LinkedIn, trying to, try to network and find folks. Had a couple artists within my friend group, but it just like wasn't their ballpark.
Oh, I got the guys.
And
I got the guys when you're ready.
Perfect. We ended up going with, I forget the website, but it's essentially like, one of those like worker bee type websites where you have folks that have different skill sets. You go on there like, hey, I need these made by this, and ended up paying like, $50 an illustration. And I think they came out well. They're very practical and it's easy to tell what we're, depicting with different sections. But
right.
I think a botanical artist that was gifted and was passionate about cannabis could put a whole different spin on the book and it would change it.
Yeah. And now with technology, it's amazing what you can do with art and with incorporating those type of things in books. So yeah, we got a really good layout. Hara Lee did the layout in our book and she's just amazing. But then we had multiple people do illustrations, which was great because we were on a deadline to get it done. I was told by somebody, I'm not going to name any names, but you know who you are, said that there's no way I could get this book done in a year. And so that lit a fire under my ass. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to listen to this guy. I can do whatever I want and I can get this book done. And so I got the book done in way less than a year. I had my draft and it was done into print. It didn't get done as quickly as I was hoping, but it was done in less than a year.
How long did it take for you to find the printing company for like the page, the quality, the binding?
Well, I wanted to go with a U.S. company, and we had to go through, and see what I knew I wanted on the cover was I wanted something different. I didn't want another grow book. I wanted they had a big plant with a black background because everybody had that, and that's why I love your book too. That's another thing is like, okay, well, it's not just another grow book that has a beautiful bud on the cover with a black background. So we put a seed on the cover of mine, and then I wanted soft touch. Those were like the two things that I knew that I wanted. And then it was like thickness. There's so many different thicknesses. And the first printing I did, we got a smaller run. We did a run of 420, and it was a thicker page. And so it was a thicker book. And I liked the thickness of the book. But when it comes to shipping, we had talked to Khalifa Genetics and a couple of other people and decided to go with a thinner book that it was easier to flip through the pages. And it's still a heavy book. It weighs a kilo, right? Or 1.75 pounds or something like that. So it's not quite a kilo, but it's heavy. But for shipping, it's cheaper than something that weighs 2.5 kilos. So we went with something thinner. It made more sense for shipping and it's easier to read. So yeah, and your book it feels like a textbook. It feels like something I would buy in college for $300. But yeah, and I think your book, what is the retail in your book?
Oh, it's retailing at $200. We went with like the highest quality materials for everything. We tried out a number of different things, including Amazon printing. And
so for me, I really thought Amazon print on demand was going to be the ticket. Or there was a couple other companies we were looking for. I don't need to name names, but I thought, man, that was going to be the way to go. I could just pay for it, but they'll give me a percentage by the each. But it was way too expensive. It didn't make sense. That's the other reason self-publishing. It's like a lot of times these publishers will give you, like my book, 55. It's a little more expensive than it probably should be, but I self-published it. And so we have to buy smaller runs of it. Same thing with yours. It's like, it's maybe more expensive than people think it should be, but it's because you had to pay so much more because you're buying smaller runs and you're doing it all yourself.
Exactly.
Right. And so I didn't want to only make $1 a book and probably not make any money for 2 or 3 years till the book had paid for itself. And that's why a lot of times what happens, guys, when you use publishers is you go to the publisher, they pay for all the books, they do the heavy lifting in that regard with the money, and then you get a royalty on your book. And a lot of times it's a very small royalty, or you might not get any royalty if your book's not good enough to ever pay for itself, right? But if you do it yourself, it's all on your shoulders. If your book fails, it's your failure. It's not the failure of somebody else or their money. It's your money. And I love that. It's like, I'm willing to die for my book.
Yeah, same. Yeah, it just didn't make sense to work with anybody else because, the book cost to print, would be more than whatever that percentage would have ended up being as well. So it was almost, as you were saying.
Yeah, you would have had to charge 150 or 175 on Amazon just to be able to make a profit.
Exactly.
And that doesn't make sense. And not that there's anything wrong with that. Some people might be okay with that, but it's like you want something that's somewhat affordable to people, but also you're putting good information out there. So, and yours does work as a coffee table book, also as a textbook. I think there's gonna be a need for textbooks in colleges on cannabis. With the way things are going and the amount of jobs that are out there as far as medical and rec, and how many states are legal.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely not a lot out there like it. That's for sure.
So, if someone's young and they're coming in the industry, what's the best way for them to get started, in your opinion?
Best way to get started, without any experience at all, no home grow experience or, any kind of relevant transferable skills like, working in a kitchen, I would either, try to apply for an entry-level job with a company that has a good reputation for having a positive working culture and they, compensate and take care of their employees fairly and well, that route, or alternatively going in one of those different programs they offer, Oaksterdam or Cleveland School of Cannabis. I know both of them work with placing individuals that graduate from their courses in positions. So if you're not able to do it on your own, working through one of those avenues or channels with one of those businesses that are very established and have a great network with a lot of different folks will definitely be able to, one, teach you how to do what you're going to be doing, and also help place you somewhere where, you can grow your career and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I'm not a big fan of culinary schools, but I do like Oaksterdam. I just taught my first class at Oaksterdam a month and a half ago or something like that. And and we're going to be doing a breeding course through Oaksterdam eventually here with the book. Have you taught at Oaksterdam yet?
Not Oaksterdam, no.
You should.
Yeah.
They would love to have you there, I'm sure.
I would love to, man.
So I can make that happen. I can make the connection happen at the very least. They're always looking for good people, and they're a bunch of good people there. They're another group of people that are doing the Lord's work. I feel like they're really passionate about the plant and passionate about education and finding a way to make the world a better place. And so we need people like that.
Yeah, I'd love an introduction, man.
Yeah, for sure. And they're local. They're local here.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's talk about the genetics section of your book. Since I'm a breeder, I work with genetics. I think your genetics section is great. I feel like it's a good overview. You go into phenotypes and genotypes a little bit. How do you feel about the genetics section of your book?
It was really one of the funnest parts of the book to write, just trying to put a foundation for people to have a good understanding of why it's so important, how it came about, what to look for.
Yeah.
It's like I said before, it's the backbone of, every good successful cannabis cultivation operation. So
yeah, everything's built on genetics. That's our slogan is everything has a beginning. Genetics are so foundational to what you do. And I feel like it could, not only could, it will make the difference between great and good flower. And you can't have good flower and be successful anymore. 10 years ago, you could have mediocre or good flower and you would still be able to sell it for a good price and still be able to make money. Whereas now you're in with the stuff that nobody wants, that they won't pay a lot for. And you're competing for price with people that can produce it for a lot less. So, and as far as genetics, what are you looking for in a good cultivar?
Yeah, something commercially viable. It's got to check all of the boxes for not just yield, quality, bag appeal, from a grower's perspective. Is it something that's easy to work with? Is it something that we have issues with in the clone room? Issues with it anywhere? Is it pest resistant? Is it, disease and pathogen free?
Yeah, I mean, going into commercial viability, I think commercial viability these days is extremely important, especially with the business and its scale. But as far as like bud structure, are you like nested bracts? You like open bracts? Do you have a preference on that?
Yeah, I mean, I like to have open bracts, right? Because when you're growing, thousands of plants in a single room, you don't want to have things too close together. I
mean, I don't mind tight buds for some stuff, but I like my buds to have shape, at the end of the day too. And I feel like trimming those, it's low leaf to bud ratio is super important. I think being able to trim the weed fast if you grow it proper. And then as far as trimming, what do you guys do for trimming? Do you guys use traditional scissors? Are you guys doing any advanced stuff, mechanical separation, or?
We do a combination of things. So we have some tumblers, some Terminator XL dries, which certain strains we can push through, and it doesn't look any different from a hand trim flower. There's other things that break up a bit easier, and for those, we'll hand trim those.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the canna brush, and finger trimming. I think there's still places and applications that work really well, even though it's not generally used by everybody. But I think the canna brush and finger trimming is a great way to go if you can do it. But that's another controlled environment. You got to be able to go around 60-60. Let's talk about cloning for a little bit. What do you feel are the best ways to execute cloning and the important things to watch out for?
Starting off with good, robust, vigorously growing, healthy mother plants.
Yeah.
Obviously having good genetics goes without saying. Keeping things as clean as possible, starting off with something like rock wool that has a good, oxygen to water ratio within the stone wool, using a good rooting hormone, maintaining the right light levels,
What do you consider a good root hormone? The rooting hormone, is there ones that you prefer over other ones?
Yes, I use Clonex, IBA, the endyl 3-butyric acid.
You get a high five for. I'm all big on Clonex. I use Clonex too, but I do like Hormex as well.
Okay.
For different scenarios. But if you're trying to get really fast roots, Hormex is great. Clonex is the most consistent.
Yeah, I agree. I've been using them for, almost 10 years now. And
yep. Grodan Stonewall with Clonex, great combo, works really well together.
It does. It does.
How about domes and humidity and temperature?
Humidity domes with vents, typically it'll start hardening off around like day 3. You go like open them a third, open them a little more each day, start burping whole trays for like 30 minutes or until a sign of wilt after like day 8.
Yeah.
Should have, fully rooted trays, day 14, completely hardened off. Temperature wise, humidity wise, you want like, 75, 80 inside the dome, have a room that's at least like 65. And then temperature, 77, 78 degrees.
Yeah, we push ours a little warmer, but everybody's got their own tech.
And then maybe like 100, 150 micromoles.
Yeah. Right
there. You don't want to push them too high.
No.
You can get away with a lot less too and get great results. But
totally. Yeah. I mean, we're actually testing mats right now, heat mats, to see if we can get more roots or faster roots. Just as my partner believes, my TC partner, Justin, we'll have a future episode where we discuss if the heat mats actually worked. But he wants to do trials. He claims that they'll root faster and they're better. I'm open to it. I want to see the side-by-side. We're going to do side-by-side racks and really compare cultivar to cultivar, heat mat, no heat mat. And yeah, we'll see. Those are like some of the things I love doing with A/B testing.
Yeah, love it, man. Got to always be trialing things, figure out best practices, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, and never rest on your laurels and expect that what you have is the best that you can ever get.
Oh, never. I mean, that's why we go to these conferences,
Totally. Everyone, yeah, there's so many, and especially the size of MJ Biz, there's always someone who's got something new, something innovative. I mean, I'm looking for a new rolling machine this year that can provide me with a partial hand roll where we can at least get the shape or something like that to speed up the process, because I really want a hand rolled joint, but I want to be able to automate part of the process or speed up the process if we can, to where we can get something quality. But as I've seen so far, there's nothing that beats a hand-rolled joint that's 100% hand-rolled.
No, I agree. A lot of the packers that they have now, there's always something wrong with them, even if it's a small amount of them out of a large batch. One will run.
Yeah.
Yeah, that won't happen with a good hand roll.
Yeah, it won't. And consistency is so important, especially with a product like that that's going out to the market. You can ruin someone's experience if they get a big old run halfway down their joint. That's the experience I want to share with the world, is like the experience that I get from smoking. If I can share that with everybody, I feel like more people would smoke. Especially when it tastes good, it burns right, you get the effect, you get the experience.
It's all about the flavor and the experience.
Yeah. Well, and then that makes you want to go back for that experience again. Just like if you're cooking a good meal and it's great, they want to come back and they expect to get a great meal the next time. And so consistency is just so important.
Consistency and repeatability.
Yeah. For sure. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. If people are looking to find more about Chris O'Farrell, where can they go?
We have a website, collabcannabis.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I have some links there as well to my website, and I'm very responsive on there.
Yeah. Instagram
as well is just my name, Chris.last name O'Farrell, Oferrell.
Nice. So thank you so much for coming on the show today. Look forward to doing this again. I'm excited about your book. I hope you have great sales over the next year and through the holiday season.
Likewise, brother.
Thank you. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe down below.